Yeah, I spit raps like a heart attack, fast fatal heart impact, past painful scars. In fact, I blast tasteful bars and packs. I back up my actions, fact don't ask, grab reactions, jacked attack with every word, then act with class as they hear me snap. I got nothing to lose, cause I fought and felt the bruise. Now I'm not the one confused, call the shots and they produce. I ain't lost, I'm finally loose, pick a new silver excuse. I need the views to boost me to a new abuse of being used. Everybody wants a piece now, y'all can rest in peace now. You're dead to me, so peace out. Remember, you're just freaked out. Get ready for defeat now, I'm gonna make you bleed out. Listen on repeat now and weed out all the weak now. Get up and make a change, don't remember yesterday. If you got something to say, speak your mind before your grave, cause your life is yours to save. Ain't nobody gonna change, everybody stays the same. So be different, make a name, huh?
I keep on moving forward, always getting closer, march until it's over. And just like a soldier, I keep on moving forward, always getting closer, I march until it's over. And just like a soldier, I keep on moving forward, always getting closer, march until it's over. And just like a soldier, I keep on moving forward, always getting closer, march until it's over.
And it's a beautiful day in the neighborhood, as Mr. Rogers would say, but down in South Florida, it's beautiful. Maybe not in Chicago right now, where you're under 3 feet of snow. And our current guest, who still runs 10 miles a day, I can only imagine what he does under those layers with those big galoshes on, making it up those streets of the South Side. But it's okay, because you know what? A good friend, a brother, someone who I have, just like many others, have claimed, I guess, as someone who I consider in my inner circle of friends. He's a man who has 36 years, of course. On top of that, you know his production work. You've seen his show. You've watched Backdraft. So you know who I'm talking about. He came on the show just a few months back, and we talked about mentoring and leadership. But we realized we needed to carry this conversation on further. And we're going to talk about it as well. But we're going to move into other areas like mental health and the fire service. And today I promise not to butcher his name. We can start with Chick, but that's how everybody knows him. How about Chief Steve Chikerotis? How about that? Did I butcher it today, Chick? Because I know I didn't do it this time.
No, you were actually good this time, Jace. You rubbed in the weather a little bit, though.
But I could have rubbed in the White Sox and the Cubs, too, but I didn't. So we kept it PG. PG. How about that?
I'm happy about my White Sox.
And I'm always happy about my Cubs. Like I told you, you're one of the few humans on this earth, other than my father, that can have an intelligently designed debate and disagreement about the baseball teams in the city of Chicago, North Side, South Side.
Okay, we'll agree on that.
So how have you been, my brother? I know it's been a few months since we've had you on the show. We've spoken quite a bit over the last couple months, though, as well. A lot going on, but how are you?
Very good, Jace. It's good to be back. Look forward to talking to you.
Well, we got a lot to talk about today. I mean, we hit some pretty interesting points about mentoring in our last conversation. We talked about some of your mentors, and one who reminded me of John Wayne, and you even, credited it to that mentality as well. You know, the cowboy up mentality, one ride, one ranger aspect of things. And he was one of your first officers that you truly looked up to in the CFD. And your transition into the training academy and the work you did there, and then back into the field as a deputy district chief prior to your retirement, and the impact you had and what brought you into the fire service in general. And I just wanted to kind of recap some of that important messaging and start off with mentoring, because today we're going to talk about a very important subject that I think needs to continuously be brought up because of the fact there's a stigma attached to it, and that's mental health in our service and PTSD. But there's going to be a transition there. But I want to start with why mentoring can help us lead into that level of acknowledgement and care.
Well, Jace, I think mentoring is important in any walk of life, and certainly in a life and death occupation like the fire department. But nobody really achieves where they are at the end of their career. We don't do that on our own. We do that because of people we are associated with. Sometimes bad people can hold you back, and just like good people can push you forward, and it's our job to stay away from negative people and link on to a good mentor, and then to not forget that when we've achieved our goals and be that person for others. I mean, I could throw a million names at you, but you referred to my John Wayne. Big
Yeah.
Bill Burns was a longtime captain of mine, and still a very close friend for many, many years, over 40 years now. Uh, he was a powerful leader in my life that mostly he led by example. He
Hmm.
was just a great example. And his team, our team on Rescue Squad 2, which at the time we were the busiest company in the city of Chicago, a heavy rescue squad, and everybody went on to uh, achieve their goals, much
Hmm.
higher ranks. We had the fire commissioner, that's the highest rank in the city of Chicago. Joe Santiago came out of our company. Danny Fabrizio, our longtime union president, came from that company. He was also a battalion chief when he
Hmm.
retired. Uh, all of the rest of them achieved chief rank, or I believe nobody lower than captain. So everybody was promoted, and that's the greatest thing that a mentor can do, is rise people up to higher levels than they probably would have achieved had he or she not been around. So that's what mentors can do. And there's formal mentors and there's informal mentors. Sometimes it's just the
Yeah.
senior man or woman in the firehouse that sets a good example. Uh, it's the formal ones like your chief, your company officer, teachers that you have as you're coming along, in your life, parents. Everybody can be hopefully a positive mentor, and there's negatives also along the way. But the positive mentors are the ones that pull us through, and they teach us lessons that uh, there's no limitation to what we can achieve.
You talk about the stages of mentoring, and you spoke about it briefly about how your parents have an impact on you as mentors growing up, and then transitioning when you start working in the world as an individual, as an adult, and you encounter whatever profession, vocation, life you choose, and the mentors that surround you. I mean, they exist everywhere outside of the realm of our service, of course, but I think about some of the lessons my parents taught me about integrity and having pride and ownership, that are lessons, that are being taught by some of the most influential names in leadership in our profession. And yet at the same time, these were lessons like, for instance, taking pride in having work ethic. That came from observing my parents and how hard they worked to provide for us. And it taught me, when I was now set free at 18 years old, hey, listen, I'm going to have to fend for myself. But they got me to that point. They demonstrated by their actions what can be accomplished through hard work. I can be grateful and thankful to them, and always will be, for those lessons. But then the mentors we have in this profession, I guess in a sense, like, I didn't realize it at first with my parents. You look at what the mentors taught us in our early days of this profession, we didn't realize what they were doing. We didn't know right off the get go that they saw that potential in us, that they were taking that potential and they were molding it into becoming leaders, that they were giving us the examples by demonstrating them in front of us and helping us decide what's right, what's wrong, how to proceed on our own. It was almost subconscious and subtle in some cases, but yet here we are today, and we can look back and say, wow, these people actually had a greater impact than we ever realized.
Absolutely. I mean, I go back to as early as fourth grade as the first outside family mentor that really impacted me. And all of them have one thing in common. And in this fourth grade teacher was this sweetheart of a woman named Kathy David.
Mm.
The main thing that she did for me was make me know that she believed in me. And, no, nothing's more powerful than having someone just tell you and also enforce it with actions that they believe in you and that you're going to succeed. Because of that woman in fourth grade, that's why I became a writer. That's one of my occupations is writing. I wouldn't have, I've written or been part of over 200 screenplays,
Hmm.
several books, all because of this one woman. And I doubt that she even realized the impact that she had on my life forever. And
Yeah.
I've had a million teachers all the way through college, but there's two, one in high school and this woman in fourth grade that really stood out. And that was the main common denominator between all of them and my future fire service leaders that were mentors was that they believed in you.
Yeah. And sometimes that's all it takes. I look at the generations that we had before us and the levels of life, the different levels of life they experience. You're talking about when I was born in the 70s, we were coming out of a wartime era in a sense, right? And the mindset was different for the generation entering the workforce then as it is today. It's not as tumultuous in some cases. It might be even more depending on your perception of society. But in the end, I think that what we have to reflect on are the predecessors, the ones that gave us that push or that motivation, like your fourth grade teacher. And I can even go back to say one of the biggest impacts I had in loving the English language and learning how to articulate well was Mrs. Bolden, Florencia Bolden, who was my 10th grade honors English teacher. And that's somebody who I admired dearly. And she was such an amazing teacher who saw the potential in every one of her students in that class and just exploited it for the better. And it was phenomenal. That year of 10th grade was one of the best years I had in high school compared to some of the others, of course, where I might not have been there all the time. But Miss Florencia Bolden, I will give her credit where credit is due. She was the reason I fell in love with more of the English language and the importance of being able to articulate and speak well.
Sure. And because of our audience, in fire service audience, if you wouldn't mind, I could just tell you a couple
Go ahead.
life lessons that I learned
Yes.
from different people throughout my career that really enhanced my fire service career.
Hmm.
And one goes back to a boxing coach. I had a world, we discussed it briefly
We did.
in number 22 when I was with you a few months back, but a man named Johnny Coulon had been a world champ and he was my boxing coach. Everyone idolized this man. Muhammad Ali used to work out in our gym. I was a kid at the time. And, uh, but things that I learned from him, but I, I actually, it'll sound weird, but I can explain it.
Yeah.
But taught me how to control my mind that really enhance success in anything I've done in the future besides win fights.
Hmm.
It wasn't just about winning a fight. It was about, learning much more than that. And it's certainly transitioned into the fire service, but controlling your mind uh, in a few ways. One way is just simple breathing. And we
Hmm.
discussed that last time with box breathing. So I won't get into it too deeply. Most firefighters have heard of box breathing, where if I inhale for 6 seconds,
Hmm.
hold my breath for 6 seconds, exhale for 6 seconds, inhale again, and you repeat the process as you go around the box.
Hmm.
What that does, just a couple rotations of that for a fighter, it helped you focus in on your opponent and bring yourself from all of the outside distractions of the world. As a firefighter, when your world is spinning, when you're in Crapsville and you
Yeah.
have to figure a way to get out of there, or you're the chief that's running a fire that's turning into Crapsville and there's distractions everywhere and your mind is starting to spin, automatically I would kick into box breathing and it would take me back and my focus would go from here to here like a laser focus.
Yeah.
And I can do that. And I still utilize it to this day. Uh, Also like our brains, just the way that they're programmed. And Johnny was more crude. He was way ahead of his time because picture, I was a kid at the time and he was preaching and teaching this, but so just way ahead of his time. But he would talk about shifting from lazy to go in the brain is how you succeed in life and how you win fights and how you win the game of life.
Yeah.
You know, uh, most of our thoughts, our lazy thoughts, they're in the rear of our brain. And I couldn't, I'm not a scientist or medical person that way where I can dissect a brain and tell you where it's at, but things revolve around the basal ganglia. I'm shocked that I can even remember that term, but that's your lazy thoughts. And
Yeah,
what that part of your brain does, it wants to keep you warm and keep you safe and keep you
sure.
relaxed and keep you from doing dangerous things. But all of our really key things that we do in life and do in the fire service, it comes from the prefrontal cortex, your executive function, and we can shift from there to there if it's time to work out, if it's time to study, if it's time to just go, if it's time to win that fight. And the way they work, the back part of your brain, it cares about how you feel. And the front part of your brain cares about what you want. So I'll give you an example. I could be in a fight and I'd be in the corner, come to the corner, and I got some guy hammering on my ribs. He might as well have used a sledgehammer the way he's banging on the ribs. And I
Oh
come in
yeah.
and I'm sitting there and Johnny comes over and I tell him I'm hurting Johnny, and he would jump in my face. I don't care how you feel. What do you want? I said, well, I want to drop this guy. Well, how are you going to do it? And then he would have you explain how you're going to do it. And as you're explaining that, because you're explaining what you want to accomplish, everything is shifting up to that focus. And you could describe, in this case, I know every time he's done with the right, he's coming in with his left hook. So what can you do? All right, as soon as I feel his right hit me, I know the left's going to come and I can beat him with the straight right. So that worked in the ring. That also worked to get my butt off a couch and start studying, or in the firehouse to start studying. I had chiefs like Gene Callahan when I was new on the job. He said the time to study for a promotional exam is not when it's announced, because that's when everybody studies. The
Yeah.
time to study is every day you're in the firehouse, a little bit, a little bit, and it all adds up. And that's what I would use, that same shifting of the brain to accomplish that. So these are just key things I learned. I learned visualization, to succeed in life. How do you achieve your goals? If you visualize success, you're probably going to succeed. If you visualize failure, you're definitely going to fail. Uh, so before a fight, Johnny would have us shut our eyes in a locker room, and you would sit there and you would visualize what your opponent was going to do and how you were going to put them on the canvas. If you watch the Olympics,
Hmm.
I'm not sure if they're coming up. I think they are, but you watch events like, in the Winter Olympics, downhill skiing, the gymnastics, whatever. Anytime there's a routine to be done, you'll see them prior to the event with their eyes shut, and they're standing at the top of the hill and their body is moving
Yep.
and they're intense because they're picturing exactly what they're about to accomplish. And then in the end, their eyes pop open and they have this energy and this smile on their face because they just succeeded up here. Now all they have to do is put it to work. And those type of things really work. And that came from a boxing coach, you
It's
know?
funny. It's funny you talk about that and Johnny Coulon and in his impact on you. And often, when I'm thinking about those moments on shift and there have been several where I've had doubts of my own abilities to do my job or doubts of performance. And I've literally sat back and ran scenarios in my head. How would it go? And maybe I closed my eyes, maybe I didn't, like if I encountered this, how would I handle it? And it's weird how it reflects in my ability to perform when I get on a scene. I mean, granted, mistakes happen when you get on a scene at times. You don't always make the right decision. You fall back, you punt, you reset, or reset and punt rather. But that very tactic is something that I feel is often not even realized in people. It is another way of consciously thinking about how you're going to get there. And sometimes you do it because you're concerned you might not succeed, but you're going to succeed because you see yourself succeeding, you know? get through some of your toughest calls by picturing what could be the worst thing I encounter, or what could happen if I do this and how would I react kind of concept.
Absolutely. You know, another way for achieving goals besides visualizing success is as simple as it sounds. It's a key thing is just writing down your goals.
Hmm.
I can't tell you what a difference that made in my life, and that came from a lawyer who happened to have been the manager for the rock group Van Halen.
Yeah.
At the time, I'm just a firefighter and working in the movie industry. I think I might have been a lieutenant at the time, just made lieutenant. And someone introduces us at this party, and I heard from someone else he was the manager of the rock group, which was one of the biggest at that time. And he had interest in me, and he's asking questions. And he said, "You seem real goal oriented." I said, "Well, I am." He said, "Do you write them down?" And I said, "No, I don't write them down." Now, remember, I just met this guy and we're in a crowded party. He like jumps in my face and he says, "You got to write them down. You got." He's like loud, and I'm backing away. I'm saying, "Just relax." But
Too
he went on
intense.
to emphasize the
Uh-huh.
importance of writing down the goals, and he was so good with that. And
Yeah.
then I always look at the success of the person that's pitching these ideas to me, and he was highly successful in life. So I started writing them down, and because this was before the age of smartphones,
Hmm.
I would write things down on notebook cards, and I would tape one on my dashboard. I would have my long-term goals, my short-term goals. I would put them on my desk, and you're seeing them all the time. And damn if he wasn't right.
Yeah.
You start moving towards success. But now with programs, with organizer programs on the
Hmm.
smartphone, well, now you can every day before you go to bed, you can rearrange your goals for the next day, short-term things. And I can't tell you how much that will enhance your life and make you achieve your goals, be more successful, which equals to, you know, uh, more happiness, everything that comes out of it by just simply writing down your goals and staying organized. The people you're competing against, if they're unorganized, it's not even fair.
Yeah.
It's like you're going through life with a plan and they're not, they're just willy nilly in it. So things like that, and that didn't even come from the fire service, and I have a couple great ones that I got from bosses too, but which I'm about to get into. But
Yeah.
the little things like that that really change your life.
And before you go any further, I want to make sure that our special guest here, my daughter, I'm going to take a point of personal privilege to welcome Shelby, my budding firefighter, the 18-year-old in the room with us this afternoon, to the show. And I hope you're taking notes. Are you paying attention to what Chick is telling you?
I am listening.
So, what resonates with you about goal setting right off the get go?
I'm terrible at goal setting, but
You're
I've been told many times that I have to write things down. I can't follow a goal on a
you
page.
can't follow a goal on a page, but can you do it in a digital note?
It's I just have a lot of problems
It's
following my
okay. Well,
goals.
you know what? She's 18, but she's getting some sage advice here. And I think it's important. You're paying attention. You should be taking notes right now.
I'm honored that Shelby's joining us. And Shelby, it's not so much that you're following that note on the written page. It's just a reminder. It's just something that you're going to see, and you're much more likely to continue to push for that goal if you can see it. It's something. The more parts of your brain you use towards a certain subject, the more the retention is and the drive is going to build up. But I know you're going to be successful, Shelby. I don't have any doubt.
No, neither do
Oh,
I.
thank you.
She's blushing right now. I wish I had the second camera I could turn and show you her face. She's red, but it's blushing in a good way, of course. Let me tell you something. She's like the other siblings grown up in this profession, and she's got a love for it. Like I've never, unlike myself, I think when I didn't hesitate to jump headfirst into this when I was 20 something years old professionally. And I'm just grateful to have someone and maybe her brother who might jump in headfirst as well here very soon to get their plan in motion. and set foot as legacies into this profession. A tremendous honor to have that, you know?
It's a great thought, but whatever she chooses, she's going to be successful.
Oh, no doubt. She could be a brain surgeon, right? A neurosurgeon. I'd be happy because you know what? She'd be making more than me. And or she could be a writer like you. You never know. She does like to write. She
I
loves to write.
I hope everybody listening caught that. Here's what our guy Jason just said. Well, maybe she won't be a firefighter. She might be a brain surgeon, but I would still be happy.
I would still be happy. It's okay. You
That's
know, you
nice
want
of
your
you.
kids to be happy. You want to be happy
That's
for
great.
them.
I'm
I love
too
it.
clumsy to be a surgeon.
Too clumsy to be a surgeon. She's got her mother's grace. You know, the mother could dance on stage and take your breath away, but walk, talk, and breathe at the same time, not happening. Not happening. It's a terrible thing, chick. It totally is. But I want to put the focus back on you because we're transitioning into a next phase here into this discussion. But I wanted you to hit the high notes on some of the lessons your boss taught you or your bosses taught you
Yeah,
before we
things
get
that I
there.
learned, like from that John Wayne guy again, from Big Bill Burns. One thing he was real strong on us learning to listen to our instincts.
Yeah.
We had a team on a rescue squad. There were 6 of us, but we most times be split into 3 teams of 2. And he wanted us, we had to be able to think on our own and trust our instincts. And I think we did real well with it. And to give you an example, years later, I'm at a fire, a big fire. I come in to hell is what I came into. I'm hearing maydays, maydays. We need the collapse rig, and I'm responding from a pretty decent distance in my district. And I get there, and I have 19 guys buried. The date was December 22nd, 2010. I have 19 guys buried in this collapsed warehouse on 75th Street. And, so we have a Mayday operation going on for 19 people, and we're scrambling, and everybody did great to save 17. And we lost 2 really great people. This guy, Corey Yankum, firefighter Corey Yankum, and another firefighter, Eddie Stringer. Eddie was a neighborhood guy here and used to ride by in his Harley. And if I was cutting my grass and heard a Harley pulling up, I would know it would be Eddie. I would turn around, and next thing we'd be sitting having a beer or 2 on my deck, and he would make me laugh. Corey was a brand new guy in the fire department, left the Chicago Police Department because he wanted more action. Just a great man, family man. I loved them both, and we lost them both. But the part is about the 17 survivors. So now afterwards, I as soon as I could leave the site, now I went around to the hospitals, checking all the different hospitals where the 17 were. And I was hearing the same message over and over and over again from pretty much all of them. But some officers, really, really good officers, and I'm not slamming them at all with this, real good officers, the kind that you would want your son or your daughter to work for. They were telling me I was having a bad feeling. Can't even explain it. It was just a feeling. Everything looked like it was starting to go good, but I had this feeling I got to get them out of here. So I just wanted to get this done and this done, and then I was going to pull them out. And then I go to the next officer, and he said, I was talking to myself. This isn't right. This isn't right. I got to get us out of here. So I heard this message times 19. Everybody had these instincts, but nobody acted on it. And that's a common problem in the fire service. And I, after giving it some thought, I think it's because we work with tough guys, tough men and women, and nobody wants to be the first one to pull the pin and back out of a situation. They don't want to show that sign of weakness that they think, but it's not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of leadership. But nobody wanted to be the first to act. And it's like I'm looking at you with your company, 20 feet away, and I'm thinking, boy, I respect Jason. If Jason starts pulling his company out, I'm pulling mine out.
Yeah.
And what do you think you're doing? You're doing the same thing. You're looking to me. So learning to trust your instincts, as simple as it sounds, it's a little more complex. Everything that we've learned, things that we're covering today, it's all up in the hard drive up here in the brain. The military did an extensive study on this. The fire service has done studies on this. It started with the military, the importance of trusting the instincts. So it's up there, but most of us don't have total recall where you instantly know what it is. Uh, but but instincts, it's trying to tell you a way to solve your problem. Your brain is firing out something where you had similar information up there, and it's trying to give you the right thing to do in life and death situations, in dangerous situations. We You can't go wrong. You always have to trust your instincts. Uh, I mean, that's the simple reason why they tell you never erase your answers on a multiple choice test, because if you think you don't know the information, you do.
Yeah.
It's coming from up there, and you've already written it down. Now you finish the test and you marked a couple that you weren't sure of, and you'll go back. And if you start second guessing, you're going to change that. And 75% of the time, you're going to change it from right to wrong. So it's about learning to trust your instincts. Other messages that I got from almost every powerful fire service leader was the importance of watching out for our troops.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that doesn't just mean at incidents. Of course, our goal is always to bring our troops home safe. Mine was, to the day I retired, that was my most prominent goal, was keeping my troops safe. But it means also watching them when you're back at the firehouse, and understanding that sometimes there's damage done due to what we see, what we do, what's happening around us. I'm
Mhm.
talking post-traumatic stress.
Yeah.
And it's important that good bosses recognize that, and that we deal with the issues.
100%. Go ahead. Keep going. I'm listening.
Good. I mean, it starts with having an open door policy.
Yeah.
A good leader, just like Kathy David did to me. She let me know that she cared, and an old saying, and it's completely true: nobody cares what you know until they know that you care.
Yeah.
And a good officer, a good boss, a good mentor has an open door policy. You know that he or she cares about you, and you're not going to be shy to go to them with issues. You can let your guard down because you know they're not judging you that way. So I think that's real important. And having post incident debriefings.
Mm-hmm.
There's formal ones. There's know post incident stress debriefings with professionals or teams. We have teams on the fire service.
Yep.
At most fire departments, we do in Chicago, and our teams will go to areas where there was a traumatic incident. I mean, we shouldn't be surprised by post-traumatic stress that it's there, that it's prominent in the fire service, because
Mm-hmm.
we deal with traumatic incidents. And most of our young people that come into the fire service, most of them probably have never really had to deal with a traumatic incident. Some came from military, some had troubled family lives, and they
Mm-hmm.
were maybe a little bit easier prepared to deal with it. And then there's others that, I mean, having a 95-year-old grandfather that dies, that's not a traumatic incident. That's a sad incident, but that's called life.
Yeah.
That happens. A traumatic thing is the customers that we see in the fire service every day of our life. They're having the worst day of their life. They're going through a really traumatic incident, and that starts building up in us. When you're putting kids in body bags, and you're sometimes putting firefighters in body bags. Lost my best friend on the job, Herbie Johnson, in 2012, November 2nd. It doesn't get worse than that, but I've lost several firefighters over my career, friends of mine that I was at the same fire with them, working, close by when this happened. That's a lot to deal with.
Yeah.
And sometimes in fact, is certainly most of my career, post-traumatic stress wasn't even heard of. In the
Hmm.
military, they called it battle fatigue and
Yeah.
didn't really understand what it was. Nobody had a treatment for it. We had a fire where a whole company uh, went down in a fire, and we have a 5-man truck company. 4 were up on the roof, venting a roof on Milwaukee Avenue, truck 7. This guy Billy is the 5th. He was the driver, so he's the last, and the chief uh, grabbed him to do something else. So he's the last guy coming up the ladder to this huge commercial property, and they're doing vertical ventilation. As he comes up the ladder and is just about to step over, he watches his 4 teammates, his captain and 3 firefighters, his best friends. He watches them drop into the fire. My squad company was able to pull one of them out, and he was a really handsome guy, this Sam Lasco, movie star, handsome, badly burned, but still alive. But 3 died. And the point I'm getting to, we had such little understanding of post-traumatic stress
Yeah.
that the very next day, Billy Carter was at work.
Amazing.
Come to work. They sent him to work. And he's sitting there, and he was so messed up in the brain that he was always the first guy to get there and would sit after checking out the tools. He would sit in the kitchen, have his coffee, and wait. And the next guy coming in was the captain. He was shocked when strangers started coming in,
Hmm.
relief firefighters and officers. That's the type of things we deal with. I I, I dealt with that firsthand probably a million times, where you your life has changed.
Yeah.
You'll never be the same. And that started with my first day on the job. My very first day on the job, I went there, not really knowing what to expect. I didn't grow up in a firefighter family.
Hmm.
I knew I was coming into an action job. I trained real hard in the academy to be good at what I do. It's really hard to train your brain for what you're about to handle and see.
Very much so.
Uh, and the first morning, uh, mid-morning, we worked 24-hour tours,
Hmm.
officially from 8 in the morning till 8 in the morning, but we start earlier and sometimes stay a little later. But mid-morning, maybe noonish, 11 o'clock, we respond to a fire, and there's 2 dead kids that we found, little small kids, toddlers, in the basement that were left home alone in this little family room.
Hmm.
And placing them in a body bag was a lot for a young guy to deal with. And you're looking at the people around you, and they're acting like it's just Tuesday. So you just do your job. You put the kids in the body bag. After, we found them in the fire, drag them outside, go in searching for more. At the end, they had me because I was the new guy, bag
Hmm.
them. So probably to expose me to the worst that the job is going to entail. And later on the same tour, I have a guy, a teenager, shot and die right in front of me at the firehouse, just outside the firehouse. So 3 deaths, and I'm driving home the next morning, and I'm thinking to myself, this is crazy. It's really crazy. And I watched how it didn't seem to affect the older guys. I know it does.
Yeah.
I think everybody held it in different ways. Everybody deals with it different ways.
Sure.
But I'm driving home and thinking this, I'm never going to be the same. And that's not a bad thing always. I
No.
think it made me a better person. I really believe it made me a better person.
2 things I want to hit on that I think are very, very impactful and important. The quality of the leader and the person coming into the fire service and their background. So I'm not going to toot my horn, and I'm not going to say that I was preconditioned in any way, shape, or form just because I had grandparents in the profession, just because I was a cadet at 14. I saw things that most 14-year-olds don't see, most 16-year-olds don't see. getting into the volunteers early, and then of course transitioning into the profession officially in 2000 out of dispatch, working both sides of the realm and experiencing those good and bad calls. Um, my biggest concern, and this is just me looking back in just the past 20 years, the concept of CISD or CISM is not a new concept. It's been around for a couple of decades. It brings me back to a time where in the early days of my career in Putnam, we had some pretty traumatic stuff happen. I mean, we had a 486 passenger Amtrak train derailment that we literally transported all but four off the scene because four people perished on that call. But everybody else was either taken out by the resources coming in from the outside, and or the school buses and or the ambulances coming in and taking them to the hospital for all of the care they needed, which thank God the majority of everybody was walking wounded. However, you still had the impact of a very limited resource incident right off the get-go where you were stressed and taxed to the abilities that you had before you, your hands and your mindset, your skill set. And even that was stretched beyond my even my own comprehension of what I could and couldn't do on a scene, and it taught me a lot about myself. And working in an emergent, hell, we were the second transport unit on that scene, coming from 30 miles away after it happened. Everybody else was out of the county. Resources hadn't even been called in from neighboring counties yet. So when we arrived, we literally were the second ambulance on that scene with 486 people that were affected. That left an impact on me. And yeah, there have been the vehicle accidents, the kid involved incidents. Um, and I think the leaders I had then, and I'm going to say this because I gave him a call not long ago, and actually I texted him. I take that back. I messaged him, and I thanked him, and it was my captain who retired as a battalion chief from Putnam County, Paul Bateman. And I sent him a message and I thanked him for, I said, I don't think I ever have done this, but thank you for everything you taught me as a mentor. One of the things that resonates with me more than anything is the fact that he was very early on with the concept of CISM. He was down with the concept. He would, instead of putting us through the official process, we would go sit on a bench in front of the Dairy Queen in Palatka with a big chocolate milk and have a talk. Whether it took an hour, 2 hours, we would all talk. That was our hot wash debrief, our own version of an after accident, after action review. And it was amazing to have that level of bonding with an officer, with someone like my captain at that time, because there really wasn't anything formal. I mean, EAP is great, but most people avoid EAP. There are plenty of options out there for care and treatment, but there are hangups even with that when it comes to insurance. But I think that having that ability to just relate to my own leader, my captain, who had the foresight to say, you know what, this is going to have an impact in his later life or their later life. Let's talk about it now and get it over with. And that way we can open that dialogue again and he's comfortable or she's comfortable with doing it. But we need to have that initial conversation. I think that's where most people are afraid to open that door because their leaders seem closed off to that concept.
That's so important, Jason. You know, that's what a critical incident stress debriefing is just letting the anvil off your chest,
Hmm.
everybody expressing how they feel inside. And surprisingly, and I guess not surprisingly, you'll find out once people start talking that everybody feels the same. Doesn't matter if they're a young, male or female, or the senior guy that looks hard as granite. Everybody has the same type of heart. That's mostly why we're in this profession, because we're empathetic people and we
Absolutely.
want to make the world a better place. The tough people, and I've been there. I'll be driving home and my eyes are watering up, and you pretend like it's because the sunlight. No, it's because of stuff that you just dealt with. And that's I would always I learned that the importance of that and how much that works is, having that debriefing. We would come right back to the kitchen. Didn't matter if it'd be 2 o'clock in the morning, have a cup of coffee or water, and let's talk this out. You don't want anybody going home feeling guilty.
Yeah.
I had a firefighter that I trained in the academy wasn't with them at this incident, but because he went off to a company in a different part of the city than I went back to my company. But he had a fire. He missed a kid
Hmm.
and blamed himself for missing this kid. And I think he had an officer that kind of came down kind of hard on him, and he went on a drinking binge.
Hmm.
And his wife came and got him out of the tavern the next, because he never came home from work, came and got him out of the tavern, found him in a neighborhood tavern the next night, and brings him home, and sometime during that night put the gun barrel in his mouth.
Oh.
So firsthand, as
Hmm.
not as a real young firefighter, as a younger lieutenant. I made lieutenant, and after hitting some busy engines and trucks, I made it back to my same rescue squad. So I'm the lieutenant of rescue squad 2, and we're doing a search. I mean, we call this Tuesday. I mean, we had fires every day, multiple fires, and why should this one stand out? But I found a kid on the secondary search
Hmm.
after I had checked the same bedroom on the primary search. And so my partner, one of my firefighters, a guy named Billy Duffy, I have 3 teams working in different areas of this 3-story structure, and we're above the fire. Conditions are real bad, and you're doing a rapid search. And we get to a bedroom, and Billy and I had choreographed moves. I hit the bed on top of it and leg sweep underneath it. Billy's
Hmm.
hitting the closet. We're checking clear, moving on to the next room. We check 3 bedrooms, make it to the rear of the structure. The conditions are starting to get a little better because we had real good fire companies, and they're knocking down the fire below us a bit.
Hmm.
So it's a little less hot, visibility starting to increase. I would radio to the battalion, squad 2, battalion 7, primary search, second floor, complete negative. Okay, squad 2, give me a, or, primary search complete. Give me a secondary search. So now we're backtracking the same rooms again, but in
Yeah.
reverse order.
Yeah.
And we get to that first bedroom that I checked, and where I had swept on top of the bed and under the bed. It's big queen size mattress. Now I give it a little tug, the whole mattress and bed frame away from the wall, and I hear this thump.
Yeah.
And there was this young kid, 6 years old, and I pick him up, and he looked perfect, unburnt, but it was smoke inhalation.
Yeah.
And I started mouth to mouth immediately, ran him out to an ambulance, and we never got him back. And I blame myself so much without saying anything to anybody. We never had a critical incident stress debriefing. I carried that burden like carrying a refrigerator on my back. And I know I wasn't the same person for a number of time, a couple months. I really, because years ago, I don't know how long it lasted, but I would wake up thinking about this kid, go to sleep thinking about this kid. And I had young kids similar age at home. And, so it was hard to deal with. And who did I finally go to? Was my John Wayne, my big
Your
Bill
captain.
Burns, who
Yeah.
now was a battalion chief in a different part of the city. And I went to talk to him, and he cured me with a little conversation.
Yeah.
And he said, Steve, you always trained and drilled hard. I know you did it to the best of your ability. He said, you're doing a primary search. What's the definition of a primary search? And I said, rapid interior search, and okay. You're not looking for a contact lens, you're looking for bodies. So it's rapid. He said, what if that kid was in the last bedroom and you took your time looking in underneath every piece of clothing, because that's not what a primary search is. And by the time you get to that third room, because of the delay, you find them there. Would you blame yourself? And he had it. The message was, all we can do. We're not perfect. We're human beings. No matter how hard we train and how hard we drill, 2 things. It's not about us. It's about them. It's about the civilians. It's about
Yeah.
the people we're sworn to protect. And all you can do is your best, and then you have to live with the results. And after that one conversation with the person that I really respected and loved, and I knew he respected me, it made all the difference in the world. And it was so much easier to deal with. And does it still make me sad? Yes. I could make myself sad by talking about hundreds of failed attempts over the
Sure.
job. I can make myself real happy by thinking of all the successful ones, but they all come together and it's all part of the job. You know, we can't come on this job and not expect that. It's like, that would be like moving next to an airport and then complaining about the airport noises. You can't do that. We know that we're coming into a dangerous, tough job
Yeah.
mentally and physically. It's not for everybody. Everybody can't do it, but some people can, and we're among that group. But even us, we have to find ways to deal with this. And then as we move up in our career, we have to make sure that we're looking out for the people that are under our command.
It scares me because everything you just described could be the tipping point for any one man or woman in this career. Any one of those scenarios, whether it was the miss on the primary, the grab on the secondary, you just keep going down the line. And yet what I see, and it scares me more than anything, is the age of the person experiencing the PTSD. And I think I touched on this a little bit earlier about coming into this field young and being what I thought maybe conditioned, now reflecting on it, but maybe I wasn't. Maybe it was just because I had good predecessors or good mentors. um the age of this stigma, this horrible disease, and the concept of what it's doing, the alcohol, the drugs, and even the suicide. Now, these kids are getting younger every year, and it scares me to see 25, 22, 23. I mean, this is a real problem, a real concern. And I wonder, not knowing the exact numbers, because I have not been able to find them. All I've ever heard is when you take the line of duty death number, multiply it by two or two and a half for that matter, and you'll have what could be the reported number of suicides in the first responder world. They're always typically higher, but they go unreported or underreported. Um, where are we failing to recognize that this is a problem as leaders, do you think? Where are we failing to break down that barrier, the bugle, the cross bugles, the cluster, whatever the case may be, and realize that the rank has the purpose, but the compassion and the character is what defines the leader and gives that leader the right and the duty, I should say. It uniquely qualifies them to be that open ear, to be that problem solver, or if they can't, they find the resource to make that problem, help that problem go away over time, or at least alleviate it. Where have we gone wrong as leaders? Where can we better prepare our leaders to acknowledge, or even our high guys, our senior guys, our Jakes that have got 10, 15 years, maybe 5 years on? Where are we failing them to recognize the cues? I think is the question we need to ask our leaders in this profession.
I agree. I think we're making steps in the right direction. Are we there yet? No, we're not. But from where I came on in my career in the late 70s to where we're at now, it wasn't even recognized then, and
Hmm.
it's moving on. I see the opposite. I see some people get the wrong message and they think, every time they see a dead person, I can't do that again. Well, so, like I said, some people then are not meant for this occupation.
Yeah.
Uh, one chief was talking, and he was talking about, I think he had two truck companies that had extrication tools, and his primary one that had the most training and the most equipment uh, was near the highway
Hmm.
of his town. They had the worst crashes. He said, I have an issue because they had a couple bad crashes, and now none of them can respond on an extrication anymore. And so now I have to quickly train this other group, and now they're going to be coming from a farther part. That's a big time problem. I mean, again, that we have to look at the focus that
Yeah,
if we're saying we can't go on an extrication, that means you can't protect the citizens that you're sworn to protect. It means
true.
you probably can't be there. And if it's the whole company, I'd look at the leadership, what's going on. So there's a balance. I mean, when people, a lot of, I believe, I'm not playing, pretending to be this psychologist, but from what I've seen with all my years and with my teams and talking with my people after, and I know what affected me, we can do a lot of this informally with good post-traumatic uh, uh, critiques after incidents,
Yeah.
you know, post incident debriefings. We can address these and send people home in a different frame of mind, and then follow up with it and keep the conversation going, because we know that all of us are much more receptive to someone that pulls up their boots like we do than someone that wants you to lay on their couch. Not that
Yeah.
that's a wrong thing, but sometimes we have to seek the professionals, and that's not a bad thing at all. That sometimes that's needed, but I always found the most success was people that walk in the same boots, and even people that were at the same incident have the biggest effect. So I don't think we should ever let it just simmer or say, well, it happened at 2 in the morning. We didn't have a chance to talk about it. We'll do it next day, 3 days later in some departments like mine.
Hmm.
That doesn't work. It has to be addressed immediately. These are unnatural acts,
Yeah.
dealing with deaths of children, and near death incidents of yourself, maybe your firefighters, all things that can shake you, and all things that everybody has to just understand that we're all feeling the same thing. Again, uh, I know I'm not the same person that I would have been had I chose another career, but truth be known, I think I'm a better person for it.
Yeah. A
Uh,
stronger person in a sense too. And if I can tag on to that, we're talking about when it's time to seek help. One of the areas of concern that I encounter, and I've learned over the last several years talking to professionals in this field that deal with the mental health and wellness of firefighters, to the fire chief, even down to the line firefighter. One of the biggest concern is the people they go to are not relatable to them. So they don't know how to talk to the therapist. They don't know how to communicate with them, because the moment they try, it's that blanket approach to mental health that seems to be common practice with the 9 to 5 jobber, right? So someone who's not in our profession, who doesn't talk like us, think like us, understand what we do, you can't approach mental health from a cookie cutter perspective. I've said it before and I'll say it again anytime it comes up in conversation, which is why I'm very proud of the work that a collaborative here in Florida does, and it's our Florida Firefighters Collaborative. They've got a cutting edge program that works with practitioners across the state. And what they do is they expose them and immerse them into our world, kind of like a fire ops day with the press and the local officials. But they take these practitioners and they immerse them into what we do on a day-to-day basis, whether it's responding to a structure fire, a car fire. They cut cars up for an extrication. They might run a medical call simulation. They're going to talk to firefighters, listen to them, understand the day to day interactions, how they talk, how we talk to each other, and then some of the stories and the stories that are troubling, that there are strong men and women out there that are broken, but they're not broken beyond repair. They've actually got strength to admit when it was time to get help. And then when they saw the crack in the system, they were strong enough and brave enough to say, we need to fix this crack so it doesn't affect other brothers and sisters in our profession. And that was one of the big steps the collaborative took, when it came to turning around the stigma of going to a therapist or a mental health and wellness expert and or practitioner, by giving them the exposure that will help them better relate to us instead of that cookie cutter approach. And I couldn't be any prouder of the work that those men and women have done over the last several years to make that happen.
Agreed. That's outstanding.
It's hard to relate when you want to express yourself. I mean, when we're peer to peer, I said earlier, sometimes the stigma prevents us from doing it. But when we're peer to peer, we can joke about things. And while it comes across as cruel to others, it's not that we intend to be cruel. It's how we manage, right? It's how we deal. There's so much more that we can definitely delve into here. And we're we're definitely going to carry this conversation on into another episode, because I think episode 3 with us, we can talk about some of the concerns we have with states that do not have presumption even. And this is a new arena for a lot of states. And there's only a handful that have a level of presumption or a defined level of presumption for first responders to seek care, Florida being one of them. I mean, 48 states have cancer presumption, but only a handful of states actually have meaningful or detailed presumption when it comes to mental health and PTSD. And that is alongside with the number of states trying to pass legislation. But the problem is, in the last year, we had a pandemic, we had a financial halt of the system, and, government agencies are recuperating now, and it takes time and it takes a process to accomplish this, because it's a cost driver when it comes to taking care of mental health needs. Unfortunately, insurance companies stray away from it unless it's affiliated with a common, theme, like say you have an alcohol problem or you have a drug problem. Well, not everybody with PTSD does. Not everybody who has, a concern with their own well-being has a drug or coexisting drug drinking issue, which makes it hard for people to get the help they need, or at least be able to access it in an affordable manner. Um, a group out there that I want to give a little bit of credit to, a group I become very familiar with, is Save a Warrior, which is a phenomenal group comprised of military veterans, public safety, personnel, law enforcement, firefighters. A group that I have come to know over the last couple months for my own reasons. And I'm going to be honest with you, they don't they don't look for the alcoholism per se. They don't look for the drug addiction per se. They look at how we can fix the person as a whole. They give you the techniques that Johnny Coulon would have taught you in a way back in the days of boxing. And this is a program that I'm learning more and more about as I go through the process of becoming more established with them. And it's fascinating. And one day I hope to be able to relate what they really do and the impact it truly has firsthand. And that's something I look forward to being able to do myself. But there are organizations out there, and for us that acknowledge there's a problem, and for us leaders and even the senior guys and girls out there that know that we need to do better, just be that ear. And when you detect the problem, say something about the problem. Don't ignore it, don't hide it, address it, because that could be the difference between keeping a brother or sister intact or losing a brother and sister through a spiraling series of events that could potentially lead to suicide, if not just the loss of their career alone from those events, which is something we want to prevent.
Agreed. We have to look at it that it's not a sign of weakness to be affected by a traumatic incident. That's
Not
called
at all.
being human. That's called being an empathetic person. I
Yeah.
think the best firefighters are empathetic people with big hearts. Those are the best. Those are the ones that we want on the fire service. And those are probably the most vulnerable.
Yeah. Amen to that. And I want to tell you, we've hit an hour and 2 minutes on this discussion, and I'm grateful that we finally got to have podcast number 2 together, and we're going to do podcast number 3 and expand on this even further. I hope you feel we hit some pretty important topics today, because I think we did. We pushed this forward, didn't we?
Jace, I think so. I think we hit some powerful topics, and I'm real happy to be here with you.
I'm always happy to have you, my pal, my brother, and my White Sox fan, Chick. Chief, it's a rare pleasure we get to do this, because you've got that schedule that just keeps you going. And you know what? Soon to be other things on the horizon. I can't wait. And when you're ready to talk about it, we'll talk about it. But that wasn't what today was about. Today was about taking care of our own. And I think we accomplished that goal. And Shelby, I got to tell you, it was been a pleasure to have you in the studio with us today. I don't know if you were prepared for this or not, but I think Chick was excited to have you in here as well, because you got the future ahead of you, kid. And I'm grateful to
you.
be part of that.
Thank you for having me, Father.
You're very welcome, daughter. All right, brothers and sisters, you know how it goes. You look out for each other. You be your brother's, your sister's keeper. Take care of one another. And as always, we'll catch you on the next one.